It is 5 o'clock somewhere, and you've tuned in to Season 4, Episode 11 of BRC. For those of you who'd like to watch this episode, I highly recommend it. You can view Season 4 on our website, YouTube, Spotify, WhiskeyNetwork.net, and Zencaster. I'm Kerry Moynahan, and today we're headed to the West with a whiskey that refuses to fit in to a neat little box. My guest is Mel Heim, co-founder, head blender, and the force behind Big Nose Kate. This bottle is a story in a glass, a deliberate blend of American single malt and straight rye. No corn, no shortcuts. Built in honor of Kate herself, a Hungarian immigrant who carved her own path across the American frontier, stood shoulder to shoulder with legends like Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp, outlived them both, and refused to be written out of history. Mel and her team helped to rewrite Kate's records so the full woman, not just the myth, finally gets her due. And as we know, many great stories don't come to light without great investors. Big Nose Kate has found just that in Melissa McCarthy and Ben Falcone. The couple stepped in as seed investors and quiet partners, and their support gives the brand the space to grow authentically, bottle by bottle. We'll talk to Mel about how the couple got involved and why Mel chose to use a co-pack distillery out of Santa Fe, New Mexico. We'll get into the unconventional mash bill and why this Western whiskey drinks soft, floral, and fierce at 90 proof. And we'll tease what's next for the brand, an expression that nods to Kate's Hungarian roots. So kick up your shoes, pour yourself a dram, and join me for this episode of Barrel Room Chronicles. Barrel Room Chronicles has just opened the doors to its brand new online whiskey shop, bringing stories behind the spirits straight to your glass. At the BRC Whiskey Shop, you're not just buying a bottle, you're sipping history from the hands of legends, like Rachel Berry of Glendronach, Benriach, and Glenglassaugh, Richard Patterson of the Dalmore, the Teeling Brothers reviving Irish whiskey in Dublin, and Bernard Walsh, the storyteller behind The Irishman and Writer's Tears. These aren't just spirits, they're stories waiting to be poured. BRC Whiskey Shop, the drams we talk about, now delivered. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is that you are catching the show today. Today on the show, I have Mel Heim, who is here to talk to us about Big Nose Kate. And as you can see, I've already taken quite a bit out of this bottle. This interview has been long awaited. Our schedules have just not been able to pair up. So, once I open the bottle, I've been trying not to drink it, but it's very good. So, hey. But it's very good, so I'm having trouble not doing it. So now that it's open, I will be able to finish it, which makes me quite happy. And I have a dog stuck on my cords. Okay. So anyway, I'll be able to finish it, which will be great. But with no further ado, I would like to introduce Mel. Mel, how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you, Kerry?
I'm fantastic. So I noticed this brand, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, and then we met at an event, probably almost a year ago now.
Yes.
And we've been trying to do this ever since, but I did want to talk to you about so many things about this brand that I think is very interesting. First of all, Big Nose Kate, we'll need to get into why is it Big Nose Kate? Who is this woman on the bottle? Then I know you have some people backing the or investing in the company, which are also some very interesting people, so we can get into that. But first, let's talk about you and your whiskey journey. When you were a wee little lass, did you ever think that someday you would be running a company with the word nose in it about whiskey?
No, maybe a company with nose in it about me. Because I am Big Nose Mel. And that just worked out. No, I didn't think that. I didn't think I'd be in whiskey. I didn't really have big ideations about working when I was young. So call that a nice protective bubble childhood where play was the number one priority. But nope, never saw that coming. My journey in whiskey is an interesting one. It definitely was not a linear path. I was a liberal arts major, which means I have the potential to do anything except for STEM. So I thought, but I do live in Portland, Oregon, born and raised here. So really immersed in the craft beverage mecca, craft brewing, and wine country is about an hour away. So my journey started 17 years ago as an office admin at a brewery. And that job was not great. And I think I was on the brink of being fired.
Oh, no.
And mostly because I was hanging out in the distillery. So this brewery, this was the early aughts, had a pilot. Well, it was a rum distillery, a pilot distillery on the second floor. And I found that very fascinating, being on the West Coast, not being in the midst of, Kentucky or bourbon country or places with a lot of heritage and spirit. So spending all my time up there. I was offered an internship or apprenticeship to work with that distiller. And I, again, being the wandering, goal-less person that I was, said sure. And that sure and many other sures along the road have brought me here to being the co-founder and head blender for Big Nose Kate Whiskey.
Okay. And so how long were you at the brewery distilling under this man?
The apprenticeship was about 7 weeks, and then the very condensed curriculum, and he left for law school. Luckily, he was my brother-in-law, so I did have access to him for more time.
Okay.
So there was 7 weeks, and then I took over full production. I ran 2 stills. We ran 2 runs a day. We had 7 fermenters, and I gave tours, twice a day, and it was a full-time one-woman operation. And I did
Wow.
that for 2 years. Yeah.
And is that brewery still in existence?
It is. It's Rogue Ales and Brewery, one of the first, kind of nascent craft breweries in the Pacific Northwest. They're 30 plus years old now.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Still independently owned.
Okay. And your brother-in-law no longer is there either. Just you.
No, he's a lawyer. Poor sap. Yeah.
Did he at least go into something like, how to, like, liquor laws or something?
No, I have never been interested enough to ask.
I love it. You could be a divorce lawyer. You could be a bankruptcy lawyer.
Yeah, you'll be fine. Something. He's employed.
There we go. Well, that's what's important these days,
Exactly.
right now, especially. Okay, so when you were at the brewery and you were doing all this, when did you decide, or was there a step in between that and Big Nose Kate, and how did you get there?
Yeah, many steps. I know I sort of brushed through that. No, many steps. So the brewery bought a couple of farms and started to grow their own barley and hops for their beer production. And during one of our meetings, I said, "Oh, are we going to start using this grain for whiskey?" And I thought that was definitely going to happen. But the president at the time said, "How much do you make?" And I said, $10.75 an hour. And he said, "Now you make 12." And that was my first raise.
Wow.
Because it clearly sparked some idea. But they did end up, we started brewing beer specifically for distilling. And I believe Rogue was maybe the second person to make single malt. And this was like in 2010,
Okay.
like a small batch single malt. So I actually kind of left right around that time where they started putting whiskey down. It was Dead Guy whiskey. And that was because of my own, I had my own personal things going on. I was in my mid-20s and, needed to tend to my mental health at the time. So I took a step back and left the best job that I'd ever had, sort of reset. But I, like the phoenix rising from the ashes, I came back a year later and was looking for sort of my next gig in distilling. But it was such a young industry here out west that most of the craft distilleries, the distillers were the owners. It was
Right.
a passion project. Someone did it. So it was very hard to come in and say, like, I've been distilling for 2 years. I want a distilling gig. And they're like, that's what we do. So I said, I just love it so much. I'll do anything. I'll be your tasting room manager. I will move buckets. And I'm bucket girl. I've been bucket girl. Move that bucket over there and that bucket over there and dump that bucket in that barrel. And I got back in at a small distillery being a part-time labeler. I said, fantastic. I can label. I'm a very good labeler. And
was it putting the stickers on and writing, or just the stickers?
Just the stickers. Yeah, I'm a lefty. Writing on labels is like not my jam.
Oh, nice.
Smeared numbers, but I've done it. And coming back into that space, I rose in the ranks at that distillery and helped grow that over the course of 8.5 years to be the first publicly traded craft distillery on the NASDAQ.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just a small journey.
That's tiny.
Yeah, we were about 1,000 square foot space in Southeast Portland, and then ended up in a 40,000 square foot facility. And helped in the operations of making some acquisitions, and yeah, we grew that little baby. The time was right. There were so many craft players that fortifying ourselves with small mergers was a really good playbook. Um, so yeah, grew that EVP of operations, and then came the pandemic. And during the pandemic, everybody was
Making
well
hand sanitizer.
making hand sanitizer and wondering what was next, and is this going to be 3 months or 3 years? And um, they released me from my contract, so I was the only employee on a contract, and
Oh,
because we
that's a
didn't
bummer.
know what was happening, and I actually had a newborn at the time, so it was like, oh, just an extended maternity leave, indefinite, maybe, we don't know.
Right.
But I was lucky enough that that contract, they had to buy the contract, so they had to like pay out my
Pay. Yeah.
contract. So I had
Okay.
some stability, and it did give me some time to breathe and sort of assess the next steps. And I thought, maybe I'll take a break. Like, can I do this with a baby? And then I got an email, and those emails, and the email was like, "Hey Mel, this is from Becky,
Becky
Becky
Harris.
Harris, Becky Harris,
Okay. I
little
know
pal
Becky
Becky."
Harris.
Oh yeah, who doesn't know Becky Harris? And she said, "Mel," she's like, "I got this deck, and I've had it for a while, and I couldn't think of anyone who'd be a good fit." And I said, "It's because I'm unemployed, isn't it?" She's like, "Well,
Sort
yes
of.
and no, sort of, because they're looking for someone
50-50.
50-50." So I read it, and it was this like very vague deck. And it was just like, the idea is this name. It's Big Nose Kate. Here's her story. This would be a great story for a whiskey. And I'm like, well, yeah, whiskey and storytelling goes hand in hand. But I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to like be an entrepreneur. I've always been the employee, pay me for my service.
Right. Exactly.
Not like this is my responsibility. So I waited a little bit, and I shot them back an email like a month or two later, maybe 2 months later, and said, I received this deck. Very interesting. Can you tell me more? And I got another email, and we emailed and some emails, and they sent me a book in the mail. And it was called According to Kate. And, you know, I thought, this is okay. Like, if I had all the funds and the time, this might be something I would pursue in like a year and a half. So maybe it's just now. Maybe the opportunity is now, and it's not when I have my ducks in a row or we know anything. Maybe we just jump.
Right.
Life's already turned up to like difficulty 12. Let's just turn it to 13. Like, who cares? So it's that sure attitude, which has really carried me pretty far. So I said, sure. What do we want to do? And they said, well, we need a whiskey maker. Like, we have the idea. My co-founders, one is a professor of entrepreneurship and innovation at the Kellogg School of Business, and one is the former head of innovation at Beam Suntory. So, just some guys. But they don't know how to make whiskey. And I was like, well, I do that. So, like, again, Captain Planet, with our powers combined, I think our skill sets were all aligned. So we just met over Zoom, and I got to work on figuring out what the whiskey is. I dragged those fellas through like an additional year of research. I said, we can't make a character whiskey because we're not lazy, right? We're intentional people. So if we're going to be intentional, I need to know everything about this woman, because it's also going to dictate how I make this whiskey. Because we're not just making something and putting a face on it and being like, we did it. It's $70. You're welcome. There's going to be more to it. And they were like, oh, wow, she's a real crafts person. And I was like, you bet. Like, if I'm going to put my name on it. So we, yeah, they gave me carte blanche to do whatever I wanted. And the more I learned about Kate, it was really an exercise in, it's like a literary exercise. So, like, let's talk about Kate as a person, adjectives, and then let's talk about grains and mash bills and feelings and flavors, and do the crazy, like, connect the red string between the two and kind of see what happens. And it was a discovery process, not only in what it should be, but what it shouldn't be. I kept trying to force bourbon into this. Don't get me wrong, I was. It's bad habit. It's a reflex. It was a reflex. And then I said, wait, what if it's not bourbon at all? What if there's no bourbon? What if there's no corn? Does that make sense for Kate? And yeah, it does. She was a Hungarian immigrant, came to Davenport, Iowa, headed west. She was feisty as hell. She wasn't sweet. She wasn't, that world didn't really make sense. So I omitted bourbon, and then it got even trickier. I was like, I just set myself back by 2 months, but I think I'm onto something. They're like, whatever. This whole thing's happening in my kitchen, so it was pretty funny. But what I did settle on was a blend. Kate's a blend of many influences, many places. So I knew it was going to be a blend. We're not building a distillery. We're an NDP, so I'm not distilling this naturally. So I sourced from, my friends whose work I admired and said, hey, I really like this pot distilled rye that you make with that roasted malt. Like, can I have some? I'm sure the answer will be yes, because you're also making hand sanitizer. So I also had a lot of access just from my peer group, and everybody was, didn't know what business was going to look like. So I did get access to all these really great products and got to bring them in and make something, harmonious out of my friend's juice. And we ended with, the rye single malt mix. And it's pretty unconventional, but accessible. Incredible, like checked all the boxes for us, and that's.
So what is the mash bill then?
Yeah, so what's in this bad girl? The mash bill at bottling ended up being 53% straight rye and 47% malted barley, American single malt.
Yeah,
and funky. I love it. And then part of it is pot distills, part of it is column distilled, and then the two cooperages is your typical heavy char American oak, but there's also an STR cuvee cask.
Okay.
That has part of the blend is in there. And that is the piece that we get from Virginia Distilling Company. We get a single malt from them. That was from the STR. So so there's all these different components. I don't like to do things easily because I want people to taste it and make it taste easy, but I couldn't just give them the ingredients to say, no, you can make this too. It's like,
right.
I made it a labyrinth at the same time. So try and
how long did it take from when you decided with the guys, okay, we're going to do this, to when you had all the components for the recipe and had a bottle made?
Let's see. It was April to August to February. So about 18 months before I figured out all the liquid components, spoke with each supplier and said, this is what I want to do. Is this, again, when building it, I needed to ensure that this product was available, like in the long road, not just this is great now, but like, can I do this consistently? What's your bandwidth for that? And the first commercial bottle, it was about a year or so later, and it was just a small amount. But luckily for me, I also have a good friend, my co-packer in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so we got that out, and that first batch was, 4 barrels.
Oh, wow.
Total. Yeah. Total. Blended. Done.
So how many different people's whiskey do you have in, say, this bottle right here?
We have 1, 2, 3 right now. We did lose Falcones. So we started with Falcones using their roasted, that pot distilled rye. I was able to get a like product from Law's Whiskey House in Colorado. Not the same, because nothing's exactly the same.
Right.
But when they sold to Diageo, they were going through an acquisition, but we didn't, that was not told to me, which makes sense. But now there's three different suppliers in here, but there's 4 different total whiskeys, because one supplier, I'm using 2 different whiskeys.
Okay.
Yeah.
4 whiskeys to make this. Okay. Is it 2 single malt and 2 ryes?
It is.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. So I know when I tasted this, because I love whiskey, all whiskey, yes, of course, but bourbon is my least favorite of the whiskeys. I do. I mean, there are some bourbons that I really, really, really like. Generally, those are high rye bourbons. I had a high rye bourbon yesterday that it was half single malt, half high rye bourbon, and I was like, okay, and this is why I like it, because it's a high rye. So by the time the bourbon's in it, and there's already half single malt, and the bourbon was little,
Yeah.
And I think if I had started drinking whiskey in my 20s, bourbon would have been where it was at for me, because I feel it's sweeter And I'm too old for that palette at this point. I say that, and then there's people older than me that swear by it. But anyway, I digress. My favorite American, up until the new legislation saying we actually have a single malt, was rye. So I'm very excited about this, and I haven't had this in a while because I wanted to make sure that I was fresh tasting. So I'm gonna pop it open. Do you have a glass to share?
I do, certainly do.
Grab a little bit here.
I pre-poured.
Okay. I love the color on this, by the way. It's really nice golden amber. Beautiful color. And that nose. Okay, so while we take a sip of on these legs, look at this. This is great. I'm just so impressed with the way this looks and smells. Yeah, that's the stuff right there. So tell me a little bit as we drink this. Tell me a little bit more about Kate. Like what was it about her story that you said, yeah, okay, I can do something with this?
When I read Kate's story, well, back up. Before I read the book that they sent me, according to Kate, and just had the one pager in the deck about Kate, I said, okay, let me go to a trusted source, Wikipedia, and see what else I can find out. And when I went to Wikipedia, it opened like this: Big Nose Kate, American prostitute. That was like the first sentence. I said, okay, interesting. That wasn't even mentioned in the slide deck that I got. Wow. Not that it bothered me, but I said, okay, well, here's a story that seems fragmented and incomplete in the two times that I tried to learn more. So then I read the full book and I said, wow, this is a real lesson in biomythography, which is how do we tell stories? What are the myths? What's the lore? We know the word. But it was very apparent that Kate's story was written from one point of view, which was a male point of view. It was written with the bias of mostly from someone who really disliked her, which was Wyatt Earp. So most of the tales we have about Kate come from him because he gave the most interviews and really monetized his story well beyond his cowboy years. So I was very disappointed that this person had been diminished to, a sidekick or a singular experience of being a sex worker in the Wild West when, there was just so much more complexity to it. And it to me, it became a challenge. Like, how do we even tell stories? So I feel like this exercise has not been done in the bourbon industry until very recently when we sort of learned the truth about Jack Daniels, and we all know that story. Right. I said, okay, so these stories have been highly polished. Let's tell a highly polished story about an imperfect person. And to me, that's a story worth telling because it's much more relatable. It's not about being a woman. It's actually just there's a bit of equity here, and it's not about for every male character that we idolize on a bottle. It's that if we're going to tell a females, it needs to be with the same robustness and depth. When I read it, I said, this is it. This is a great outlaw story, but not in the Hollywood sense. It's about overcoming. It's about perseverance. It's about grit, persistence, survival. Those are the stories that I like. So that's why Kate was the perfect person.
Okay. And then if somebody wanted to know the full story of Kate, do you have that up on your website and all of that goodness? Or
our website, yes, tells a very good story, but we also spent the first 2 years of our business having her Wikipedia page rewritten to include the full story. Wow. So if you go to her Wikipedia now, it does not start with that sentence, and it's actually filled with more sources and more information than it was just a couple of years ago. So her Wikipedia is a pretty good place to start, but the book, according to Kate, is the only full collection of first-person accounts, Kate's first-person account, as well as letters that she wrote that gives us the big picture. So there's really, again, history and the characters of the West did a very good job of almost writing her out completely. So we have resurrected the story in its entirety for folks to enjoy and learn about.
Wow. And what year did she come over to the US?
She came to the US in 1870. Nope. Yep, 1870. She was 15 years old.
Okay.
trying to get that name right. She was on the USS Bremen from Germany. So she was born outside of Pest, Hungary. Her father was a physician. They were very affluent, but there was a bit of political turmoil in Hungary at the time, and they were forced to leave. So they came to Davenport, Iowa. Her parents passed away, and she was orphaned and faced with a life at an Ursuline school. And she took off. She said, I don't think so. That's not for
Yeah.
me. I'd
Yeah.
rather see what else is out there. And so that was in the late 1800s. And then she passed away in 1940 in Prescott, Arizona.
Oh, wow.
At the,
So
1 week before her 90th birthday.
yeah, it's pretty old. That's a great,
She
great life.
outlived them all. Yeah, quite interesting.
So
And
what's the connection with Wyatt Earp? Like what? Yeah,
the Earps. So when she ran away from home in Davenport, she was a stowaway on a riverboat and not knowing where it was headed. And she was soon found out by the captain of the boat. But he did take pity on her and was very impactful in that short amount of time that she even adopted his last name of Elder for a while. So um, that riverboat landed in Dodge City, Kansas, which might have been the most lawless town in the United States at the time. And she soon found work with Nellie Earp, which was the sister-in-law of Wyatt Earp. And that was as a working girl. She wanted to maintain her independence. She wanted to make her own money. And that was really the only viable option for women at the time who didn't want to be betrothed. So that introduction sparked the next 50 years of adventure. And she followed one of the Earps to Fort Griffin, Texas. And in Fort Griffin, Texas, she met Doc Holliday, where they started a fiery affair that lasted 8+ years. But she would end up following Doc, and he was following the Earps across the West and, to New Mexico, to Arizona, briefly in the Colorado Territory. And Wyatt Earp actually gave her the moniker Big Nose Kate. So
her nose doesn't look that big.
Let's talk about that. She doesn't have a big nose. She has a very cute, proportionate nose to her face. But he would tell her, Kate, keep your big nose out of our business.
Gotcha.
Because she was always butting in. And she famously replied, your business is my business. And so he referred to her as Big Nose Kate after that, but then she wore that name like a badge of honor. What he called nosy, most people would call curious or industrious, inquisitive. So she just wanted to know, like, oh, Pharaoh, you can make money playing Pharaoh. Like, tell me how to play Pharaoh. And then she started running her own Pharaoh tables and making her own money. So it was really just the entrepreneurial spirit that gave her that name. And so we love telling that story too. She doesn't have a big nose. I'm like, no, she was incredibly nosy, which is how she survived for so long.
Yeah. Did she ever marry?
She did. So she was known as Doc Holliday's common law wife because they worked together for so long. And she did use that to her advantage to try to get a Confederate's pension later in life. But when her and Doc had their final breakup just before his death, she married a gentleman with the last name Cummings, and he was an alcoholic and abusive, and he actually died by suicide. And she was destitute, but she was also loyal and filled with integrity and contacted his daughter and gave the little inheritance there was to her. And yeah, and she was in her 50s, late 50s at this time. And yeah, she just moved Cochise County, Arizona. She set up shop. She was a maid. She was destitute for quite a while after the adventure sort of wore down and, you know, the West became more industrialized and populated. But then later, yeah, she would use to her advantage a prior relationship with the governor. So she tried to get the pension to live at the Prescott Pioneer Home.
Okay.
And but you had she did not qualify, and she wrote 2 letters to the governor reminding him that he was once a customer of hers, and she was granted access. Look at that, and lived there for 11 years until her passing.
Wow. And the governor was still around then? He was
The governor was retired, yes,
okay.
but she wanted a letter of reference,
Oh, I
to get
gotcha.
in. She needed a sponsor to get in. So the governor was the most high-powered person that she had in her life.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Wow. So just the one marriage.
I
It
believe
seemed
it was the one marriage.
okay, and it seemed relatively short-lived?
So she claims she married a dentist before meeting Doc Holliday, but there's no record of this marriage, and his name was Silas. And there's no record of the marriage, and she also claimed to have had a child who died of yellow fever. There's also no record of the birth of a child. The only time this story was told was in the Pioneer home in her late 80s, and because there was no verifiable sources, the interviewer chalked it up to a mixed up memory because she was with Doc Holliday, who was a dentist, and she claimed to have married a dentist. His name's Silas Melvin, but there's no corroboration there that it happened.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
When was she supposed to have had this child? Before Doc Holliday?
Before Doc Holliday.
Okay.
Yeah. I know. What's
Wow.
happening? I know. Okay.
Yeah, so I never heard of Big Nose Kate until your brand came out. So
Mhm.
I'm very fascinated by that. Like, I mean, I don't know how I didn't know about her with all the Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp stuff.
Because still the Western lore is primarily focused on the male heroes. Even today in media, when we have all these stories that are being told, 1923 Yellowstone, it's about the men, it's about the cowboys. Um, when I think there could be a whole series about Kate or people like Kate. It's what is an outlaw, what is a hero. They're very similar. Um, but I didn't know about her either, and that actually made me pretty upset because I'd seen Tombstone at least 400 times, and I was like,
Right?
"Oh,
Or variations thereof,
oh, the
Tombstone of,
Hungarian devil." I was like, "Oh, the woman that's on his arm," and I was yeah, and so when I actually read her story, I was like, her story, she was the boss. She made the money. He lost money hand over fist. She kept him alive as long as she could as a caretaker and as someone who helped, direct good decision making. So, yeah, we wouldn't have Doc probably for as long as we did, had it not been for Kate's influence.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All
Yeah.
right. So
Think that too.
so the founders that had the deck, how many are there? 2, 3?
2.
2.
Mhm.
Okay. And what role do they play today, or do they?
They do. As founders, we have like a flat hierarchy where we're all involved in kind of the many aspects of the business. Um, Paul is like our brand guru. He's all about Kate's world, bringing it to life, how that looks, consistency. And then Kevin is our blocking and tackling guy, um, who's very operations oriented. I am the CEO, which is the chief entertainment officer. I'm just here to help everybody have a good time. Uh, but no, we all work on all aspects of the business all the time. Um, I I get paid. That's the difference.
Oh, they don't get paid?
No, founders. I think they have real jobs. They actually do have jobs.
Okay.
This is my job. So they're involved, and then we have our sales employees, and we've always been incredibly lean. I think the most we've ever had working at the same time is 6 people
Wow.
ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that including those 2?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
It
Okay.
comes and goes. Yeah, so it's like you've been in rotation. I guess I will say so I'm lucky enough to have a co-packer, so they're not our employees or anything, so I'm not adding them to our book, but there's a full operating team at the distillery in New Mexico that helps bring this out to the people. So including them, add 8 more people.
Okay. Now, how did you guys end up deciding to produce this in New Mexico?
That was another amazing moment of serendipity. Again, intention. This whole thing's driven by intention. I could co-produce it anywhere. I could make it in Kentucky. It doesn't make any sense. really wanted Kate to have a home and a sense of place. So I put the call out to my distiller friends during this development process and said, all right, who's in the Southwest? We had Whiskey Del Bac in Tucson. There was Santan in Arizona. There's a couple places in Texas. I didn't have close relationships with any of them, but I was like, I'm looking for a co-packer. And then I got a text from a good friend and colleague, Kaylee Shoemaker, who's a former head distiller for Proximo, Stranahan's Hangar One. And she said, Mel, I'm building a distillery right now in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I said, oh, that's interesting. Kate owned a dance hall in Santa Fe, New Mexico, about 100 yards from the rail yard. We've been trying to find it. We've been trying to find the location, but these businesses weren't on the books, if you know what I mean. So it's like
Right.
nobody really knew the physical location, but she was smart enough to set up shop on the rail yard where men were coming in and out. And Kayla goes, oh, it's on the rail yard. And I said, no. I said, are you kidding me? And she goes, no, it's on the rail. It's on the tracks in the rail yard. And I was like, wow. And she had a
Wow.
shell of a building. And I said, I would love to be a co-pack with you. And she was like, well, right now it's a shell. And I said, that's okay. Right now we're a shell of a business too. We're still ideating, but I need to find a home and get this prepared. So we were the first product made at her facility. Like we were ready to commercialize when she turned the lights on. Like that was the timeline. So really the fact that Kate is produced in a place that she worked and lived, and it was an important station in her life, and really couldn't ask for a better partner or situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long was Kate in New Mexico?
She went in and out of New Mexico twice. So she was in Santa Fe, but then she was in Las Cruces as part of her wandering journey. And there's another small town just east of Santa Fe, and pardon me, I'm forgetting the name right now, but she also worked for a dance hall there. So Kate would make her way in and out of New Mexico and Arizona multiple times. She never went back to Texas. And she never made it to California, which I also thought was interesting. So many people kept going towards California, but yeah, she went in and out.
Okay.
Just following work.
That's awesome. Okay, so then let's go to the next part of the story. You were working with the founders, and you guys came up with all this great information about Kate, and you found the components to make the expression. You found a place to co-pack it, and then you got some investors involved. And how did you get these investors? Did you know these investors? And who are these investors?
Okay, so we have a couple investors, but I know which ones you're alluding to.
We can talk about all of them.
Oh yeah,
no,
we can. Oh yeah, we do have some really great core investors who came in when we were, young and spry. Springdale, which is, a CPG consumer goods focused fund, Beatbox, Goodles. They have a couple like really great brands under their belt, including Desert Door Sotol. So they're in the mix. And then Goat Rodeo, which is a great name. They also have Archer Roos and some other. They're very like beverage and food focused as well. So we had like some anchors, and then we have our other investors, which was kind of a shock to us as well, and that's Melissa McCarthy and Ben Falcone, A-list Hollywood superstars. And because of our relationships in Hollywood from previous gigs, so myself, I actually made a celebrity whiskey at my former job.
Okay.
Ideated, created, sold it. After 3 years, we actually sold it to the celebrity. That was kind of the pathway. So I'd been through that journey. And then Kevin, having worked with Beam Suntory, they did a lot of work in Hollywood as well. Mila Kunis was part of, we all remember that campaign. So we had contacts that kind of overlapped. And so we actually sent a bottle. I think it was from our first batch. So that's how early this was. Like, we don't have, we're not, this is like pre-revenue. And we said, this is, and even Paul in his ventures also had a celebrity deal going. So we sent it for fun to the creative artist agency, said, here we are, these three people. We all you guys know us in some capacity. this is what we're up to. Enjoy. Like, this is what we're out making. Really no expectations until they called us back like 6 months later. Kind of forgot what was going on, and did say that they had someone who was interested, and it was Melissa and Ben. And we said, oh my gosh, that's really interesting, actually. We didn't want a celebrity brand. Okay, let's just the traditional sense of the word. Like,
Right.
we don't want that. We don't want someone that an endorsement deal. Like, we're too small. We're selling in Oregon and out of the tasting room in New Mexico. Like, it really doesn't make sense to have a huge megaphone. What we really needed was money. Money, like any small business. Like, the way we build this is with cold, hard cash. So we were introduced to Melissa and Ben. We did like a reverse interview. Like, why do you want to be involved in this? It was like the most stressful call ever. Again, I had like a baby. I had to take the call in my neighbor's yurt, which was in their backyard. Actually, its own funny story. I like couldn't be in the house because it was like a bungalow and the kid was awake. It was just so funny. I'm in a yurt. I was like, it's very Oregon. Just roll with it. But we took the call and we all kind of hit it off. They really like the founder story. They like the female maker story. They love whiskey, so that was like a good fit. They've never really endorsed anything. They've been in commercials, but they've never like backed anything.
Right.
And this would be their first foray in like philanthropy. And I said, well, I love money, so yes, I will happily take some. I know what it costs to do this. And they did. So they came in as a seed round, not just as our partners, but as an investor. And then they were essentially silent partners for almost a year because we didn't have use, for their sort of weight in the industry. Like, we couldn't have them just doing a bunch of stuff and us being like, well, we only have 400 cases, or like, we're tiny. So again, a little bit different, but we like different here. We like different. And I think consumers are a bit fatigued from these celebrity brands where they're just like shoving it down your throat. So we have a really unique relationship and partnership with them. We do events every so often, and they're not on like a rigid Big Nose Kate schedule by any means. We did one bottle signing. We're doing another one next month. Those are the only two we've done in 4 years. Like,
Oh, wow.
it's they're actually just cheerleaders and investors on our cap table, which is really amazing to know we have their support and access. But to us, it was more important to build this thing organically, make sure that the liquid is acceptable. Can this survive without an endorsement? Can this survive in the whiskey space, not just in a brand space? So they've been, really great partners in letting us do that.
So did the agent was he like just giving drams to people and
Apparently,
they came in, or
allegedly.
did you only send them one
We
bottle,
sent
or
them
did you
3 bottles. Sent them 3
Okay.
bottles. Sent 3 bottles, and yeah, I should get that story a little bit more, like the actual when it got to them, because I know the story of once they had it and tried it and liked it and knew our story. I know all that part. I know how that happened and how they were excited and motivated and interested and curious. But yeah, I don't know if he was like had people in his office or what that piece of it looked like. I feel like it was, again, more happenstance than anything else. But I'll take that. They just really like whiskey. And I was like, and for me, there's a lot of parallels in their story. Like, they both really made it in when they were 40, like right around that time. And I'm trying to make it, I'm 42 and I'm also just trying to make it in a male dominant in an industry that's really hard to break into.
Exactly. Yep.
To survive in and thrive in, let alone thrive in. And then I saw a lot of parallels with Kate's journey. Like, you just had to work. And they definitely, made their own way. And I liked that. Nothing was handed to them. Nothing was handed to Kate. Nothing's been handed to us. And we're just out there trying to make something worth celebrating. So yeah, I was very intrigued. Because there's also not a lot of women in whiskey, There's a lot of women behind tequila brands and vodka brands and wine, but I really couldn't think of someone who was backing a whiskey company. So we
Right.
like all those things.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you, I know Ben writes a lot of stuff that Melissa does.
Yes.
Albeit comedy.
Yes.
Although I don't know, this could have some comedic. Has there been any talk about making the film about this?
I don't know. I think we're also overwhelmed with just trying to make it. That making a film is sort of, I guess that would be like a very long-term vision of the brand world and Kate's potential. If we really put pen to paper, I think we could come up with something pretty brilliant. Uh, I do feel like I feel like people are ready for a story like this. It would be refreshing. It would kind of, again, break up the dichotomy that we have going with. I think it'd actually be a great shoe-in with Yellowstone and the follow-up to the Yellowstone and the other spinoff to Yellowstone, and all these. What the West is in right now for whatever reason. I think
Yeah.
it's an interesting part of history.
Have you called Taylor?
I know, Tay Tay. Tay. Really, anyone. I'm like, if you like whiskey, this would be a great whiskey for you, but. She's from Tennessee, right? She probably has her own, I don't know, connections there. But I really think there is a space for Kate in the zeitgeist of today's culture. Again, there's so much happening in music and media and fashion that the West is in. So how we leverage that and get the story of Kate out. We're a tiny team, so we're just telling people like, hey, you should also know about Kate. I love starting conversations. Who knows about Doc Holliday? And like everyone raises their hand. I'm like, boo. And I kind of like boo. So I'm like, but who knows Kate? And it's like less than 10%.
Yeah.
So we're out to change that. I think a mini series would be great.
Yeah, I think so.
I'll call a meeting. We'll put it on the agenda.
So, what is your goals and plans for the next 5 years for the company?
Be rich. No, I'm kidding. Goals. No, the goals for us, like we really want to like plant a flag in the Southwest and say, this is a Western whiskey. And we did that because it's a DSS, it's a distilled specialty spirit. So it can kind of live in its own space. Categorically, it could be a rye, but I'm like, no, this is a Western whiskey. It embodies the ethos of the West, which is like, fake it till you make it, show up, do the work. It's influenced by so many things. The West was a melting pot back then. I mean, like truly, she was a Hungarian. Like there are so many influences. And so we just want to like plant our flag in the West. Really want people to understand and learn more about non-bourbon whiskeys, which thank you to the TTB for giving us American single malt.
Yeah.
That's great. As a blender, I saw the potential for single malt as a blending agent because Europe's been doing it for 200 years. I'm like, blending malt is really fun and beautiful and great. So in the next 5 years, I would just love to have like a nice core business and a hub, and people know about Kate. And I'd love to see Kate, get a bar call. Internally, I have a goal. It's a bigger goal. Jack, Jim, Johnny, Kate. That's my vision. That's it. Like, let's just break up the boys club, but she should be a stalwart. It's not an overcomplicated crafty thing. It's a $40 bottle. Jack, Jim, Johnny, Kate. Like, that's what I'm working towards. It's, a bit of the pushing the rock up the hill, but I'm committed. I got time. Yeah. I have nothing but time.
Time is good. Time is good.
Time is good.
So how often do you get down to New Mexico, and how often do any of the investors, not just Melissa and Ben, but does anybody get out there to like check on things and chill?
Yeah, I go quarterly. So I live in Portland, but I typically go down when we batch, and we're doing a batch a quarter, and our batches are much bigger now. But we'll go down and go through the whole sensory barrel picking. All the inventory gets brought in when it's in house. That's when I go, and it's 5 to 8 days of processing, and then we'll do the blend, and then the blend will sit for 30 days in vats, and then Kaylee will send me a sample, and then we'll do the like yay nay, like our little like Zoom sensory situation, and then her team bottles it. So I don't have to be down there all the time. I don't have to micromanage. It's the best partnership I could have asked for, frankly. I mean, I'm totally willing to relocate to New Mexico. Don't get me wrong. But I don't need to. I don't need to be there all the time. But I want to go more. But I have to work. I got to do the things. The other founders, we were down there in July. We were there for my birthday.
Happy belated.
It was in July, in like a founder meetup. So yeah, we get down there as much as we want and need to. It was a lot in the beginning. Now it's twice. I think all of us maybe twice a year.
Okay.
Me more often.
What states are you currently available for purchase?
We distribute to Oregon, California, Arizona, New Mexico. We are no longer in Washington. That's the Wild West. You want to know about the Wild West? Go to Washington.
Yeah, they got some strange rules up there.
There's strange rules and then no rules at the same time. It's like very bizarre. We found it very hard to get into the market without a ton of capital. Right. And then mostly because chains rule the roost up there and independents can price it however they want. So we'd see like a $36 bottle, and then we'd see like a $67 bottle. And I was like, how does the customer navigate this? I just felt bad for the customer.
And then the taxes they put on it is plus ridiculous. The tax.
And so I just started, once we were out, I just started sending Washington to our e-commerce. And so then we also have e-commerce. I'm like, you will save money. You can just buy this online and have it at your door in 10 days, and you're going to get a consistent price. It'll be fine. I have ideas of opening, I guess technically we're in Wyoming, as in Wyoming ordered a case this year. And I said, oh, look at that. They bought a case. They're a control state, so they can do that. But I'd love to get into Colorado. E-commerce has been a great way for us to learn where our community is, so we're not just like throwing noodles.
Yeah.
Kind of identify what's going on. But for us, the West is best. We're not out to like open 50 states and, just like bleed money. We really just, if people like it, they can get it online. We do have presence in the Western states.
Nothing on the East right now?
No, we're not even east of New Mexico.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean,
how about Nevada?
No, not Nevada. Although it's an expensive market. If people don't understand the distribution setup, I know we would do well there, but the cost is also a lot. So
very cool. Well, it's a delicious. Now that we've been talking and tasting, let's talk about the flavor profile for a little bit.
Sure.
I mean, the nose on this bad girl, excuse me.
I know, bad girl. I do.
The nose on nose, the nose on big nose, Kate.
That's also by design.
Yeah. I do smell both components, the single malt and the rye. And it's not an overly hot, like I was expecting to maybe burn my nose on the rye, but I did not. No.
So even the rye that I chose is a bit more, it's not
45, okay. 45.
Maryland rye or Pennsylvania rye. It's actually a bit more floral. It's grown in the plains and on the west. It's in Colorado and Texas. So the rye itself, from a profile perspective, was not like your traditional baking spice profile. It's a little softer. There's some stone fruit in there and a little more floral, orange blossom, things like that.
But it still has a rye flavor. Yeah.
I know.
And the oil on this, I mean, look, I don't know if
it's not lovely. I know. Yeah. And that's, again, choosing some like high congener pot distilled whiskeys to throw in there. Again, for the viscosity and just for the mouthfeel. Because this is 90 proof, it's not a hazmat. It's not a high proof whiskey. It's nice. You can sip it, but it's also great for cocktails. Right. That was, again, by design, it should take you to sort of a time and place. I did not want you to smell this and be like alligator char. Like I didn't, it's cigar blend. I didn't want those, kind of extreme flavors. And then not using corn as an emulsifier, like not using corn as a flavor bridge was a really great exercise for me as a blender. Like how do I bring these two components together like harmoniously, right? It's chaotic. You take all these things, like how do I do it? Again, nothing but time. Take the time. But
You've taken the time. It's a beautiful dram, and I love it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, this is actually, I finished the bottle you sent me. This is another bottle.
Oh, thank you. I was like, good Lord. I was like, she's just been milking that thing.
Okay, so let's talk about what's next. Because right now you have one expression, and are we going to have another expression? And if so, what will that be?
We will. I actually just debuted this down at SIP in Louisville. I just got back on Sunday night. So the Bourbon Women Association. I took a very, very sneak peek of the next expression, which will be our first in 4 years. The Tokay barrel aged Big Nose Kate.
Tokay.
Okay.
Nice.
So going back to Kate's Hungarian roots, it made sense.
That's a wine, isn't it?
It is, and it's a region. Yep, for the region. And so, Tokay wine is very, it's well known for its noble rot. I mean, that's the noble rot process. So they actually just let it ferment on the vine and then drop, and it's very sweet but dry. And so we were able to get Tokay barrels. I ordered 24 about 6 minutes before Russia invaded Ukraine. And it caused a bit of a disruption in the supply chain. I did receive 12. So I have 12 Tokay barrels. I did age the individual components of Kate in those barrels. I didn't want to just put the finished blend in and do that. I wanted to know how each piece reacted. And so the individual components aged between 6 and 18 months, depending on what it was. And then I pulled those out and do a blend that was sitting. And so the Tokay expression is an homage to Kate before she was Kate. She was born, and we haven't covered this. Maria Magdalena Isabella Horani is her name.
How did she get Kate?
Anglicized to Mary Catherine. So Maria Magdalena to Mary Catherine to Mary Kate to Kate. That's the journey, the evolution. And so this is basically known internally as the prequel. So before Kate was Kate, she was Maria, and she came from this other place, this other world. And so the mash billet bottling, taking those individual components, is actually inverted. It's 66% American single malt and 34% rye. It's a completely different character because Kate was a completely different person. And so I don't have a release date. I really want to do it this fall, but it will be limited because of not all of those barrels are ready for bottling. So what I did pick, it might be like, I don't know, I had to determine the proof. We were trying it at 111 proof, which is straight from the barrel. Quite nice, but I haven't even experimented with our proofing down. I really love straight from the barrel. If I can do that, that's great. But that would be very limited. I mean, I'm talking like hundreds of bottles, not thousands. But it's very good. It's very distinct. It's very unique. And I was lucky enough to have Lisa Roper Wicker try it, and Jane Bowie and all my friends and peers when I was at SIP. And they're like, you got to get this out. So that is the next expression. It's incredibly limited, but now that I have those barrels, hopefully it can become annual or semi-annual and get that out.
That's awesome. Well, I can't wait to taste it.
I'll send you
have a sample you can send.
I'll send you some. Yeah, and spare a sample.
Fantastic. Yeah. And then do you plan to have any more after that, or are you just going to go with the 2, or you just see where life takes you?
So I'm like a creator bursting at the seams. That's my problem. But at the same, I'm an English major with a whiskey making problem. Watch out. But no, there's ideations about doing just the barrel strength, which is quite nice. I mean, we try it every time we batch before we start proofing, and it's really nice. It's more of what, it's not about me. It's what the market can bear right now, which is the most unsexy way to talk about a product that you make. But I do think I want to keep things simple. I don't want to dilute the value of this brand or this person by creating too big of a portfolio of LTOs or limited time releases. I do think the barrel strength would be a nice addition to the lineup. Beyond that, you're not going to have a Big Nose Kate seltzer. It's not happening. I know you want it, Kerry. It's not happening.
No, I don't want it.
I'm just kidding.
I can make a big nose Kate seltzer. I
Yes,
just
you
get
can,
some
a
seltzer.
highball. I
Make
know.
a little highball.
That's my thing. I'm like, do whatever you want with it. So I think simplicity for me is it, unless I get some sort of, hair to do something else. But barrel strength and tokay. Again, like intention, the blending piece of it is really important to me. The tokay was quite a process.
How long did it take you to source the barrels?
Oh Lord,
minus the whole delay for the.
Oh, the delay was almost a year.
Okay.
I knew right away that I wanted tokay. I actually thought tokay staves would be a part of the core SKU, but realizing the scarcity and then wanting to get them from Hungary, not just use a cooperage that's buying the oak, it was like a process. But no, so we pulled out a majority of the product in February, and then the remainder of the malt came out in July. So the very last piece of it came out in July and was put in. And so now it's been vatted. It's just sitting there. And I said, Kaylee, like, send me 2 bottles from that vat, like as is, just, get your beaker and do it. And I was very pleased with how it is right now. So like, I think that could be like commercialized immediately. So it's with the delay and the 18 months, July would mark 18 months for that part of that malt. It's been almost 2 years.
It's always a journey when it comes to whiskey.
It is,
right? It's always a journey.
Not just making stuff to make it, to get it out on the shelf, and like, it's whiskey tells you what time it is.
Exactly.
You don't tell the whiskey what time it is. So,
I love that saying. Okay, I do have one more question about the book. The book.
Yes.
Who was the author of the book that you read?
Chris Enns. ENSS. She is a Western historian, and she's the author of the book, according to Kate.
Okay, and have you spoken with her?
Many times. We've done events together. We are fairly close. We did an event in Prescott for where Kate is buried at the Palace Hotel, where Kate has her own booth. Which was so cool. It's like taking a step back in time. And we did a lecture together on Big Nose Kate, and then also had the whiskey. But yes, we are close to the author, and we use her as a reference anytime we have questions as well.
Have you thought of doing one of these expressions as like maybe the single cask or a cask strength, maybe doing a single cask where you do a gift set with the book?
I would love that. We did a set when we launched the brand. I wouldn't call an influencer case or anything. It was really to my peers and people that I wanted to try and get their real feedback. But we did send out kits that had the book in it, signed by Chris. Like, you need to read this book to understand this person. It had a deck of cards and the expression. It was just like a nice little like learn about Kate. But yeah, no, we send the book and I take the book to all the events that I do.
Great.
So people can look it up on Amazon. What's that?
How many pages is it?
Less than 200.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
because
Kate, quick reign.
She gave one interview. One in her 80s. And then when he started asking about Doc Holliday, she stopped the interview. Yeah, she was like, this is my story. Yeah. Journalists came to her. Everyone wanted that, firsthand account. And so many of the cowboys were killed that Kate was like one of the only people who was there for the shootout at the OK Corral. She was there for all these things. But what, was propositioned and proposed as like, we want to talk to you, quickly turned to, tell us about the men. And she wanted to tell her story. And so Kate, stubborn mule, would rather be poor than sell a story that wasn't hers, which, dang. Yeah. Very admirable. I don't know, but it's very cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I am very impressed with Big Nose Kate. I love the dram. I can't wait to try the 2 other expressions coming out. And I think I'll need to go get the book and take a nice read about it. And
good read.
Mel, I'm wishing you and the company the best of luck. And if you are ever in LA and want to do an event, let me know. I'm happy to get the word out.
Excellent.
And, hopefully we can get you in the Barrel Room Chronicles shop so people can order you right now when they're watching the show. So
that'd be great.
All right.
Cheers. Cheers, Kerry. Thank you. Cheers, everyone. Thank you.
Now open. Barrel Room Chronicles online whiskey shop, where every bottle tells a story.
Solange.
Like Richard Patterson's Timeless Scotch at the Dalmore, Rachel Berry's Elegant Malts from the Glendronach, Glenrioch, and Glenglassa, or the bold Nevada bourbon of Ashley and Colby Frey. From Hemingway Rye's Call Family Legacy to Bernard Walsh's Poetic Irish Whiskey and the Scully family's Coastal Clonakilty, these aren't just spirits, they're stories, and they pour neat. BRC Whiskey Shop, the drams we talk about, now delivered. That does it for today's show. To read notes on this episode or learn more about our guests, please visit barrelroomchronicles.com. Want to interact with the show or have questions for our guests? Then ask them on our socials or send us an email. Or better yet, leave us a voicemail on our website. If you like what you heard, please rate and subscribe to the podcast. If you really liked it and you want to show your support, buy us a whiskey through our Ko-fi site at ko-fi.com/BRC or become an exclusive member of the Barrel Room Parlor. If you work in the whiskey or spirits industry or just have a deep passion for whiskey and want to share your spirits journey, register to be a guest through our website. Last but not least, please enjoy your spirits responsibly. Thanks for joining me. Until next time, Solange.
Barrel Room Chronicles is a production of First Reel Entertainment and is available on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon, YouTube, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.